Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack number 22. My name is Julie Willand, and I am so excited to be here with all of you today exploring this awesome project pack. We're having so much fun. So again, this is Project Pack number 22. It is also the 12 Days of Zentangle 2023, a very exciting time of year for all of us here at Zentangle HQ and the entire Zentangle community. So we are working with these materials from the Project Pack number 22. But Project Pack materials are available on Zentangle.com. They are also available from some of our certified Zentangle teachers. And if you don't have these materials, we do always encourage you to follow along with whatever you have at home. But this project pack has these awesome pre-strung tiles in both the 5 size and then this brand new 5x5. And these are just so much fun to work on. If you hadn't had a chance, I encourage you to go back to the introduction video for this series, which is linked down below, where Molly talks about these tiles and the inspiration behind this project pack, which is Bijou and his spiral and the Tangle Printooms. So we're working with all things spirals as an inspiration today. So let's get started. The tile I'm working on today is one of these 5x5s, and it is this string with all of these intersecting lines inside this orb here. And then you're going to want all of your tools in the project pack. So we've got a brown 05, a black 01, a black 08, our jelly rolls in these great colors here. And all of our pencils, the chalk pencils, graphite, white charcoal, and then a tortillon for each of them because things do get a little muddy when you're doing all that shading. And as always here, we're going to begin with a moment of gratitude and appreciation. So you can take this time to be grateful for this moment here tangling. Perhaps there's something else going on in your day that is new and exciting or old and familiar and comforting. Whatever it is, whether big or small, we're taking a moment to be grateful. And when you have done that, I invite you to join me as we begin this tile. And I'm going to start with the Micron 01 here. And I'm going to begin in this first space here. And since this project pack is all about spirals, I'm going to begin with one of my favorite spiraling tangles, which is the Tangle Sand Swirl. I'm going to begin down here, and the strings and the lines get a little, they all converge here, so you're going to overlap them at some point, and that's okay. And I'm going to kind of start at the bottom of the space, and I'm going to add a curved line that loops around and stop when you meet the line. And then I'm going to aura that line, aura it again, going around. And because I'm at the bottom here, I'm making this line all kind of meet at one spot. But we won't do that for everyone. That's just for this first one here. And you can see my swirl has gone over several lines, and that's okay. Once I have my first little swirl down, I'm going to start another one going in a different direction, moving up my space. Oring each time. There's no set number of auras you need to use, but you can kind of get a feel for what looks like it works for you. And then again, I'm going to add a swirl. All my swirls going in a different direction. Now when I've met this previous swirl, so I'm going to draw behind, come out the other way. And I'm going to continue to add my swirls in my space. And while I overlapped many strings at the bottom, as we go along top and I get more space, I am making more of an effort to stay in that space. But again, if you go over the string, that is fine. And so as I fill the space with sand swirl, I am going to stop at this first intersecting line right here. So I'm going to, well, I guess it's the second one. I'm going to ignore this string and stop right there. So there I have filled my space up until that string line with my sand swirl. And so then I'm going to pick up the brown micron 05. I'm going to skip the space directly next to my sand swirl. I'm going to work in this space right here. And I'm going to work up until this string line. Filling the space with poke root. A poke root is just a little stem with a little frown and an orb drawn around it. So this is just a fun little tangle that grows organically in a space. Sometimes I go over my string. I was so excited for these tiles. These strings that Molly created are just absolutely incredible. They invite so much opportunity and creativity, and this string especially just called my name, and I did so many different little trials with it. I'd have one idea and then I'd start tangling, and then I'd have another idea, and it would go off in all these directions. And eventually I ended up somewhere, or ultimately I ended up somewhere that I was really happy with. But I'm not done exploring these tiles yet. So there I have added all my poke root up until that string that I wanted to stop at. So then I'm going to put down my brown micron, and I'm going to pick my black micron 01 again. I'm going to skip the spot directly to the right of that, and I'm going to work in this last spot. I'm going to start here and go all the way till this string line right there. And I'm going to do sand swirl again in this space. So that same tangle we did right here. And that poke root is now kind of growing out of that sand swirl. Taking my time, turning your tile, focusing on one stroke at a time. I can only fill this space one line at a time. So there's no use in worrying about what that final line is going to look like until I get to it. You can put down your black micron. So this is already looking really fun. These tangles are both really lively and kind of growing, overflowing their spaces. So then we're going to contrast that with something a little bit more rigid. We're going to be doing a fragment I'm going to begin by creating a reticula to put my fragment in. And I'm going to work, so first I have all my sand swirl here. I'm then going to use this space right here. And I'm working with this blue jelly roll pen, this aqua color teal. That's the word I was looking for. And this is, I want you to ignore these strings right here. So first I'm going to warm up my jelly roll a little bit. And I'm going to draw a line that goes from this top string to this bottom string. And I'm going to draw a parallel line. And they kind of flare out at the top and bottom. And then I'm going to move down my space a little bit. And I'm going to draw another one. And then another one. So I'm creating some square-like shapes that I'll put my fragment in. And I'm just ignoring those other strings behind it. And that's the wonderful thing about the string and the Zentangle method, whether you create your own or you're working on a pre-strung thing, you can take what you want and leave what you want. So you can see each of my spaces are pretty equidistant apart. And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing next to my poke root. I'm going in here, I can actually use these strings because they these spaces are the size I'm looking for. So I'm going to put my first one here along that string. And my second one. You notice I'm not tracing the line exactly. And this one doesn't have one, so I'm going to split this space in two. And then I'm going to add a little hint of a line right here. And you want to be careful. These gel pens are a little inky, so we're going to give those lines just a second to dry. But next I'm going to be working with the brown Micron 05. And I'm going to start in this space to show you what the fragment looks like, and then we'll go back and fill in that first one. But I'm going to start in this corner here, and I'm going to draw a curved line to the opposite corner. And then I'm going to aura that line and aura it again and again, and keep auraing it till I get to the corner. And then on top of this first line that I put down, I'm going to put a little crescent moon shape. And I'm going to fill that in with ink. I just need the lightest touch. And then I'm going to aura my ladybug shape. Aura, aura. Filling that space. And you'll see those string lines just disappear right behind it. And then I'm going to mirror this fragment next to it. So my initial curved line is going to go from this side to that one. Aura, aura, aura. Add my little ladybug shape. Filling it in. Adding my aura. And then this space has my sand swirl, but it's the same idea. So I'm going to mirror the shape. So this, and then my auras, they're just going to imagine they're going underneath my sand swirl. My ladybug shape, you're just going to see that little piece of it. And adding my auras. And so I'll keep doing this, keep mirroring them back and forth. Just a series of auras with a ladybug shape. And if you mirror it the wrong way, or you flip it, or you do, or you don't do that, that's okay. Don't worry. Once this tile's all done and shaded, you won't notice. Or whatever you did, you can just keep repeating that pattern. That is kind of the magic of fragments. That they create a whole different look, whether you repeat them, you flip them, you mirror them. And once you get down to these spaces, they can get a little tricky. But you can just go with whatever feels right to you. And I'm going to repeat the same fragment in all of my bands here. After you have finished putting your fragments in, we're then going to work in these spaces we have left. And I am using now the yellow ochre pencil here. And we're going to go back to the tangle that brought us all here for this project pack, Printooms. And I'm going to fill these spaces growing from this middle one out with Printooms, but with my pencil. So it's going to be like a soft background, kind of like how it is in the background of this whole, well, it's in the forefront of this whole project pack, but kind of the inspiration behind all of the other tangles that we're doing and all of the strings and ideas have come from this. So Printooms is kind of flowing out of everything we're doing. And this is going to be a weighted Printooms. So if you want to watch, I'm just going to start with a spiral. And then I'm going to go back in and add a little bit of my pencil to the tops of those lines to add a little bit of weight. In here, pretending as if they go behind my sand swirl. So there I have all of my Printooms in the background. And so now we're going to shade, and I am very excited to shade this tile. We have lots of great tools with us. So we're going to start with our 2 chalk pencils. And I'm going to start with my sand swirl. And I'm going to add some brown pencil to the bottom of the stem of each of my sand swirls. And then where it swirls around and it looks like it tucks under that stem, I'm going to add some more, kind of going around that little pod shape. And I'm going to do that in each one. And then once I have added that pencil there, I'm going to take my tortillon and I'm going to soften it and also pull it up a little bit. Again, leaving some light space there on each of my swirls. I don't want the whole thing to be brown. I want to leave some white there. And depending on how big your swirl is, how long the stem is, some might have more brown than others, and that's fine. And then once you have softened all that brown chalk, I'm going to go back with the yellow, and in those spaces where I've left the white, I'm going to add some yellow. And then of course, I'm going to pick up my tortillon, this time the one used for the yellow. So you have a tortillon for each one of your pencils. I'm going to then soften it. And so now I'm not really concerned with like leaving any white because I have the dark brown and the yellow to give me that contrast of light and dark. But there, it kind of gives this flow of the dark to light back to the dark. And I just love the way these layers look. And so I'm going to do the same thing to this set of sand swirl as well. And I invite you the same. So again, starting with my brown, adding it to the bottom for each end of my swirl. So there I have the rest of my sand swirl. I'm now going to move on to our poke root, and I'm going to be using the brown again. Our shading is kind of going down in layers. So first I'm working with these chalk pencils, and then we're going to go back with the graphite to add even more shading. But for each of these poke roots, there's so many different ways to shade each tangle, but I'm just going to go into each of my little orbs and along the top here, just add a little bit of my chalk pencil. I'm drawing it on the side. One of my favorite things about the Project Pack series is this invitation to just to step outside of what you might normally do. I don't always gravitate towards a lot of color, and if I do, I feel like I tend to go with more jewel tones. But through the course of this project pack, I have just fallen in love with these colors and these tones on these tiles. It's so much fun, and I am thankful for this opportunity to explore all of them. And now we're going to soften with our tortillon as we do, taking your time, giving each one of these poke root the love and attention it deserves. And next I'm going to go back to my brown pencil, and I'm going to shade each one of these fragments the same way. So I'm going to add a little bit of graphite on the edge of these bottom auras, the little pocket, if you will. And then I'm also going to add some on top of this aura where my little ladybug sits. And again, I'm working with the brown still. And then going back to my tortillon for my brown, just ever so gently softening that chalk pencil. And then going back to my yellow and using that again to highlight and softening with my tortillon. These colors are just so warm. I feel like I'm in the sun. And then when I still have my tortillon for my yellow, I'm going to go to all my Printooms. I'm not going to add any more, but just any more pencil, that is, but just on the outermost line of each of my spirals, just soften that just a little bit. Again, not too much because our whole tangle is pencil, so you could soften that whole thing. But I just want to do that outside line just to give it a tiny bit of dimension. And now I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil, and we're going to work through this tile here, adding some graphite. And so I'm going to go back to my sand swirl, and on each one of my swirls, where my auras look like they're wrapping underneath, I'm going to add some graphite. And then wherever one swirl kind of sits on top of the other, I'm going to add graphite there too. And I'm going to do that to each one. And then while I still have my graphite in my hand, I'm going to then add some just on either side of my teal lines here, and then along the top and the bottom. And then I'm also going to go and I'm going to start with my sand swirl here and add graphite along the edge and also where my sand swirl meets my fragment. And then I'm going to do the same with my poke leaf all the way around. So I'm going to go work on the bottom and the top and over my fragment. I'm being a little heavier handed there than maybe I am elsewhere. Just adding graphite and then my final set of sand swirl. And now I'm going to take my tortillon from my black or my graphite and go back and soften. So we put down a lot of graphite here. So I'm going to go back to my sand swirl. I'm going back to where I put it down on each individual sand swirl. And you can see the dimension gives you like they're all weaving in and out of each other and of themselves. And then I'm also going to go back of where I added the graphite along the edge and soften that. I feel like that my swirls are just on top of everything else. They are overflowing with abundance. And then the same for my poke root. And then these sand swirls. So again, each individual sand swirl has some graphite in it. And then along the outskirts. And then to my fragments. And we are almost done here. I'm now going to pick up this white charcoal pencil, which I love so much. And I'm going pretty heavy-handedly add some highlight going across these fragments here. And again on this one, my tortillon already has quite a bit of graphite. And so I'm just going to go around here and add a little bit of shadow underneath my fragments on top of that Printooms that I put down. And then my one last final step is I'm going to pick up the Black Micron 01 again. And because I have put so many layers down on here, sometimes those initial pen lines can get a little lost. And so I'm going to go to my my sand swirl here. And I'm just going to redefine the parts of my swirls that are on the edge of my whole tangle. So I'm not redefining every single line, just the edge. And then I'm going to do the same thing to my poke root, but since I drew those in brown, I will use my brown micron for that. And there you have it. And so you can add your chop somewhere on the front of your tile. You can sign the back. Project back at 22. And take a moment to admire your work. Another moment for gratitude and appreciation. And I am grateful and I appreciate all of you who tangled along with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson and join us tomorrow for our next video in this series.